Welcome back to Adventures of a Black Belt Sommelier, sponsored by Four Paws Restaurant, the iconic fine dining restaurant in St. Paul, Minnesota, with wonderful food, attentive professional service, and wonderful wine in addition. Um, and hello from very, very cold St. Paul, Minnesota. It is currently 4 degrees below zero. Um, I have a good friend that frequently says if half of Hoyt's stories are true, he's lived the most interesting life of anybody I've ever known. Um, the thing is, they're all true. And I have lived the most interesting life, I think. I can't imagine anybody's had a more interesting and rewarding and fulfilling life than I have. Just an incredible wealth of people and places and wines and meals and experiences and travel. And then I have, it's been an amazing 73 years. It has been an amazing 73 years. Today is the Army Navy game. Uh, if you're not an ex West Point cadet or Naval Academy midshipman, it's hard to even imagine how important the results of the Army Navy game in the life of one of the students at the military academies. It is really enormously the most important thing that happens every year in the life of the cadets and the midshipmen. Um, And if I'm sure it's the same at the Naval Academy, but if Army loses, the lives of the freshmen, the plebes, are just horrible for the next couple of months. The upperclassmen just take it out on the plebes if Army loses, in a variety of ways. So it's you just hold your breath, you just pray, you just hope beyond hope that or if you're a cadet, that Army will win, and if you're a midshipman, I'm sure it's the same. If that the Naval Academy will win, and it's an incredible experience being part of it. The pageantry, the just the moment is amazing every year. So I figured out my freshman year that um, if I was a student manager on the football team, I would get to go to football practice instead of marching in the afternoon. So I signed on to be one of the student managers of the football team. It also meant that I got to travel with the football team to away games, and I got to sit at the football team tables to with the food. Honestly, the food at West Point is incredible, but for the students in the mess hall, but the the food for the football team is even more incredible. Yeah, I think I remember that we burned 3,000 calories a day, so they had to feed us well. Anyway, so I signed on to be a student manager of the football team. My junior year, I was assigned to help the defensive coordinator in whatever way that he needed help. The Wednesday of the Army Navy game week of the Army Navy game, I was on the field at practice in Mikey Stadium up on top of the mountain behind the academy. It had been snowing all day. There was probably at least a foot of snow on the ground. We were practicing. We didn't have an indoor practice facility. Um, and I had the defensive game plans in my hand for the defensive game plans for the Army Navy game in my hand, which were, if you could imagine this, this is a long time ago, but if you can imagine this, the defensive game plans were written on kind of glossy cardboard with a magic marker and with O rings holding the other, so you could flip them over. That was how unsophisticated things were. Anyway, the defense coordinator called me out to help him with a tip drill. I put the defensive game plans down on the bench beside me and went out to help him. It continued to snow. That night, about 8:30, the defensive coordinator called me in our room in the barracks. It said, "Mr. Hill, where are the game plans?" And I said to myself, "Oh my God, they are still on that bench. I never picked them back up." Um, you know, if I had lost the defensive game plans on Wednesday of the Army Navy game week, they would have tied rocks to my ankles and thrown me in the Hudson River. So I had to go find them, but it was 8:30. We couldn't leave the barracks. Well, I wasn't allowed to leave the barracks after, I don't remember what time, but whatever time it was that you were kind of not allowed to leave. So I'm not making this up. My two roommates and I, Jim Fish back and Will Jones, William Stack Jones, Will, who actually was a Medal of Honor winner in Vietnam before he came to West Point, and I ended up with him as a roommate. And Jim and his father was a general, and Jim's father was a general too. It's just as I said, I've had the most incredible life because how is it out of all the 1,000 freshmen who arrived at West Point in early June that I get assigned roommates, two guys whose fathers were generals, and one of whom won the Medal of Honor in Vietnam. Just how my life has turned out. Anyway, we actually did the classic Three Stooges thing. Our room was on the third floor. We tied our sheets together and climbed out the window, bundled up heavy coats because it was cold as hell. Wind was blowing, snowing, sleeting. It was miserable. We tied our sheets together and climbed out the window down to the ground and went up to this football stadium up on top of the mountain where it was even colder and more snow. And I knew where I'd left the game plans, but they weren't there. Um, Under probably at this point 2 feet of snow, they weren't where I'd left them. So we couldn't just not find. We had to find them. They had to be there somewhere. We had to find them. I couldn't just not find them. So we were up there for probably an hour. It seemed like days we were up there, but we were probably up there an hour just shuffling around with our feet in the snow, hoping we would stumble upon or kick or whatever these pieces of cardboard. Cardboard's not the right thing, but like heavy construction paper. And we'd been up there probably an hour when this custodian came out and said, "What are you boys doing up here? You're not supposed to be up here this time of night." And I told him. He said, "Oh, I have those. I have them inside." So, so anyway, he gave them to me. We went back to the barracks and climbed up our sheets and went to sleep. Probably I don't know 2 o'clock in the morning or something. And the next morning, when everybody marched off to breakfast, I made sure to be in the back row of my company's formation. And when everybody marched with the game plan stuck inside my coat in the back and kind of stuck down in my pants inside my coat. And when everybody marched off to go to breakfast, I just peeled off and went to the defensive coordinator's office and left the game plans on his desk and went on about my life. Skipped breakfast that morning, and we lost. We lost the game, unfortunately. But anyway, that's my crazy fun story about the Army Navy game and my version of the Three Stooges climbing out the window of our barracks with our sheets tied together. I hope you come by and see me at Four Paws sometime soon. Things are really great. Food's great, service is great, wines are great. Right now we have fresh white Alban truffles and fresh black Burgundy truffles that you can enjoy with a really, really wonderful glass of Barolo. That really doesn't get any better than that, especially when it's 4 degrees below zero. Thanks for tuning into Adventures of a Black Belt Sommelier.